today on the Voices from the Flag tour series, we are speaking with the amazing Deters, Carolyn Deters and Denny Deters. They were an integral part of the flag's journey to be restored, so we are excited to have them here today. And hello, Carolyn and Denny.
Hello.
Hello.
So thank you for being with us, and we'd love to hear more about your role with the flag, and maybe even the first time that you saw the flag.
First time I actually saw the physical flag was right after the tornado at Little Sioux. A year after the tornado hit, Jeff Parness and the Exodus Thank You group came to Little Sioux to build a outdoor chapel, and they brought the flag with them. We displayed it on the roof of the chapel after it was built, and we've had several displays of it during that weekend, and that's really the first time I've seen it.
Wow, so in Little Sioux, interesting. And so after that, you were already volunteering with the New York Says Thank You Foundation? Yes.
Not really.
No, we had worked with Jeff and the crew to get that weekend together to actually start building that chapel. And as we were going through it, I mentioned to him, I said, hey, if there's anything you need us to do or me to do, I'd love to help with the organization at the time. And lo and behold, about 2 weeks later,
It was longer than that, I think.
Yeah, maybe it was. Yeah. A couple of months later, he calls and he says, remember that conversation? I said, yeah. And he said, I got this crazy idea. And that's when the flag tour actually started. We started putting together the idea of taking the flag around the country to repair it, or to put it back together again. So I was kind of in charge, if you will, de facto wise, of figuring out how we were going to go ahead and repair the flag. And I ended up with a title, quote unquote, of flag protocol officer. And so since with my Boy Scout background and all my military background, knowing that the protocols of the flag, we wanted to make sure that the flag was honored. One of the criteria that I insisted on was that any part of a flag we used to stitch onto the big flag was to be made from a flag that could no longer be flown. So it took us about 6-8 months to get all of that together before we finally decided, oh, maybe we ought to, or Jeff actually decided, oh, maybe we ought to take it around the country. So that's where she got involved.
The first stop we had was in Arkansas, and he wouldn't do it. He said, you have to come and do it. I said, I'm not doing it. I said, this is your thing, and you're, and so he finally talked me into doing the first one. It was definitely, the first one was definitely not exactly the smoothest operating thing.
She got so enthusiastic about it. She made a dress, a Betsy Ross
Oh,
dress.
That was Jeff's doing.
And she actually went to the ceremony looking like Betsy
I did not.
Ross.
I didn't go to the ceremony
Right,
that way.
afterwards.
I need a picture of that one.
Jeff has one, I think. But then he says, what if Carolyn brings her sewing machine and, she could be there and show people how they make, she's making the patches and this and that, the next thing. And Jeff said, only if she dresses like Betsy Ross.
Yeah, that's right.
But the look on Jeff's face was priceless. It was absolutely priceless when he walked in there.
All the kids
loved it.
The kids loved it.
And then you later became in charge of putting together all the ceremonies, correct? And
yeah, I basically became the flag tour event manager, and that came about. Denny was up in New York with Jeff, and they called me from a gas station. Denny calls me and he said, here, Jeff wants to talk to you. And he hands the phone to Jeff, and Jeff says, Denny told me that when you were working at Creighton, you did family studies and you programs and stuff like that. And I said, yeah. And he says, you're going to be my flag tour event manager. And I go, well, can I think about this? And he goes, no. So,
there it was.
so as I've said many times, Denny volunteered and I got voluntold. So.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk to us about a certain place or memory that stands out to you most from the tour and why?
I think Pearl Harbor stood out most to me. The tragedies were similar, and it was like Denny's dad and my dad were both in World War II. So it really struck a chord with us. And the ceremony itself, the people had just gone all out. I think that was probably the most significant for me. I don't know, Denny, what do you think?
No, I think it was the same thing. We went to a lot of amazing places, but I think the Pearl Harbor one was probably the one that stuck out in my mind too.
Did anything surprise you about your experience with the flag? Like going into it, things that maybe you didn't expect that came about?
Almost everything we didn't expect. I guess the thing that really got me was, when we did a tour, when we did an event, the museum would contact any people who had lost someone on 9/11. They would contact them and let us know we were going to be there. There was a gentleman in St. Louis that Jeff had met in New Jersey who had lost his son. And so when we got to St. Louis, I asked Jeff if he would like me to call that guy and invite him personally. So I did. And he actually did come. He didn't want to talk about his son because we always gave the people an option about talking about their family member that they'd lost if they were there. And afterwards he came over and he took his ceremonial stitch in honor of his son. And then he looks at me and he goes, could I give you a hug? And it was just kind of one of those things where, I can't tell you the number of times we were both in tears. I think to me, the thing was that the effect it had on people, it just made such an impression on them. Denny ran into a couple that told him that it was the first good thing they'd seen come out of 9/11.
The impact that it had on me was the realization eventually of how many people were affected by this from around the country. Mm-hmm. We had I don't remember, we were in San Diego or someplace, and we were at a restaurant, and there was a waiter that came over, an elderly gentleman came over, and he saw our shirts and wanted to know a little bit about it, so we started to talk to him about it. And I finally asked him, as I do a lot of the people that we met, I said, do you have any connections with New York? And he said, yeah. He says, my neighbor was the pilot on Flight 11.
Wow.
So, it was all of that stuff that all of a sudden.
It would just come back and hit you in the face. It really did. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty emotional at times. It really was. So I don't think either one of us expected to be affected that way.
Yeah. And
I think truly that was the thing that really got to both of us more than anything else, was just the effect that the flag had on the other people and also on us as we were doing it.
It's amazing that you were able to, through this project, like, hold space for those people and be there. And I don't know, I look at this flag as a piece of art too, like as an art teacher, I look at it in that way. And I think about the power of art to help us heal and connect and share our stories with each other. And the fact that you brought this to people as an outlet to do that is really amazing, because maybe they never would have had that either,
Yeah.
Had that moment, had that connection, had that reflection. So everyone, you and everyone who was a part of this, like, that was because of you all. And that this was not an easy thing to put together, right? Like, I mean,
you know, it was very intense, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, and I've said many times, if I'd known how much work it was, I probably wouldn't have done it, but I'm certainly glad I did.
mhm.
Yeah, it was something that I think both of us, it was probably one of the highlights of our lives,
Other than our kids.
other than the kids. Yeah. It was a privilege to do it. And we loved every minute of it.
Mhm. So you talked about the effect it had on the people, and that was something that really affected you. What do you hope that when people learn about the story of the flag or read 30,000 Stitches, what do you hope that it means to other people as well?
Well, in this day and age, I hope people will recognize the fact that in many ways we're all the same. We're all Americans. We all suffer losses. We all have happy moments. We're, you know, and we may not always agree with each other, but we still have that common bond. And that's something I think that nowadays some people have just forgotten.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that I would love to see this book affect that, and I think it will.
Mhm.
I think the other thing is that it's a way to keep the memory alive without being negative about it.
Right.
And
Yeah, we always
I
talk
think,
about 9/12 as opposed to 9/11.
yeah, and I mean, and that's basically what the flag was. It was a 9/12 moment. It was a rebuild. It's like, you know, here we are. We suffered this horrible tragedy. Let's prove to the world that we can unite and get behind a project and get it done. And basically, you know, if it hadn't been for the people who attended and stuff like that, it wouldn't be done. It's not just me and Denny by a long shot.
No.
It was all the people who came willingly, all the people who helped us set up the ceremonies, the FDNY, you know, everybody that participated, you know, recognized the fact that this flag meant something. So I think that the book that you've written is a way to carry that over to the next generation.
Yep.
And I think that's an important thing to teach.
Right.
Yeah.
You've done a bang up job on it.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being a part of it, and thank you for joining us today to talk a little bit more about your story and your involvement with the flag. And New York says thank you. And hopefully, hopefully it will be a reminder to a lot of people of just the things we talked about. You talked about unity and healing and resilience. We can get through hard things. We've been through a lot these past couple of years, so hopefully it will be a good reminder of that at this point in time too.
Yeah, you know, you look back on it, and it's now 20 years, and, you know, vast majority of the kids that are looking at the book, if you will, weren't even born.
Yep.
To them, it's history.
Yep.
It keeps it alive.
And yeah, the book, I think, will definitely keep that alive.
I hope so. I hope it's a great resource for families and educators, librarians,
Yep.
to help talk about important topics. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So thank you all. Thank you, Carolyn and Denny. And we will see you for our next episode of Voices from the Flag.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks, Amanda.
Bye.
Bye-bye.